Hello friends, welcome back to the video series on Oracle PL SQL programming. Previously, we have worked on the functions and there we have found two types of functions, single row function and multi-row functions. Now about the group functions. The group functions are also called as the aggregate function. Function works on a set of values but return a single value, and that group functions commonly used are like count, max, min, sum, avg, etc. As discussed earlier, single row function works on each row or record in a table and returns one record as the processed data. That is, when a table contains 20 rows or records, and when this function is applied, it would work on each of the 20 records and return result for each record. So the output would be obviously 20 rows or records if there are 20 records in the table. Whereas multi-row function is practically applied on the multiple rows or records of any table, but when returning the result, it returns only a single value. Group functions are also known as the aggregate function, as it calculates with several data or records but return only a single value. In that case, a table itself is treated as a group. As you see some common functions here as group functions, let us discuss those with hands-on practical with the SQL class. At first, connect with the Oracle database with the user, system, and the password. As you know, throughout the video series is password. So the login is successful and we are connected to the Oracle database. Let us check the salary of each and every employee from the employee table. As you know, we have already worked throughout the video series on the table employee. So here we are typing the query select salary from the table employee, semicolon, press enter. So here we are getting 31 rows or 31 records for the 31 employees. Now, if we want to get what the company is paying in total for the employees, that means for all employees, so we have to get the summation of all the salaries here. But that is a very laborious job. So we can use the sum function here, that is SUM. And for the demonstration before, we are clearing the screen for the better view. Type select sum, that particular function, on which column? Now that one is salary, from employee, that particular table, semicolon, press enter. So this is a single output and is the total output or the total amount of salaries company is paying to the employees. As like this function, if we want to find the average, minimum, maximum, and to count the total number of salaries to pay, we can use the avg, min, max, and count function respectively. Let's check the queries. Select, then sum of salary. So within parenthesis, the column name salary, comma, then avg, that means for the average of the column, that is salary, comma, then mean for the minimum salary, that is salary, the column, and then max for the maximum, that is for the column salary, that means in the or within the parenthesis, comma, count, and in parenthesis the same column salary, and that is from employee, that particular table. So these are the respective outputs we are getting for the group functions. Like for sum, already we have found the average salary is given here, the minimum salary is also here, the maximum salary is also here, and also the count of salary, that is 29. Now why 29? Let's check once again the previous one, that means select salary from employee, and here we can find that 2 employees has no salary. That means there are total 31 rows, but 2 employees have no salary. That's why we are getting the count of total salary paid as 29. That means 31 minus 2. Just to note that each and every case the single output is seen. So this is how we can use the group functions in Oracle SQL. Now, if there is a large number of records in any table, we can group the records by some columns, such as look at the employee table. Here we have a column department ID. So if we want to group or simply want to break apart the records of employees according to the departments and how much total salaries the company is providing for each department, we can use the group by clause. Remember, the choice of column is very important. If we group by first name or last name, obviously that type of grouping does not make any sense. Let us check it now. So here, at first clear the screen for the better view, and here type select, then DPT ID, comma, sum within parenthesis the salary from employee. Now there is something wrong. Why? Because the error is given here, not a single group function. Because when we are finding the output for department ID and also for the sum of the salary is a single output, but the department ID is for each and every employee. So that's why the error is here, not a single group function. And for that we have to type group by DPT ID. Now semicolon and press enter. So here we are getting the output. How much total salaries are utilized according to the department. That means where no department is present, that means the employees which are not assigned to any particular department ID or department are getting total salary of 52,893. Same as for the employees who are assigned in the department ID 20 are getting the summation of salaries like that one, and also for the other departments. Now we can also use the order by clause also here, such as select department ID, sum salary from employee, group by department ID or DPT ID, and now order by DPT ID. So press enter. Now check the previous one output when the order by clause was not given 20 was the first one or the blank was the first one, then 40, then 10, then 30. But here, according to the department ID order or in the ascending order, the output has been provided. Same as we can also type another query for the same output, like select DPT ID sum salary from employee group by DPT ID and order by 1 and press enter. The same output is here. Here the 1 means the first column DPT ID. So both have the same output but in the ascending order of the department ID when we are using the order by clause. Now we can also multiple columns to use with the group by, like with the department ID we are combining each and every employee ID. Like at first clear the screen for better view, then select DPT ID, then we are using another column, suppose EMP ID, comma, sum salary from employee group by DPT ID and another one, that is EMP ID, and order by 1, comma 2 and semicolon. Press enter. Check the output. The first column is ordered by the department ID, then ordered by the EMP ID. Let's check with the first one. The DPT ID 10, then the employee ID 105, then DPT ID 10, then the employee ID 106. So in the department ID 10, there are two employees, 105 and 106. Employee 105 has salary 10,800 and 106 as the salary 9,000. If we add both, we are getting total salary company has to provide in department ID 10 is 19,800 as previously found from the previous query. Let's check 19,800 or not. Let's check from the previous query. So here we are getting for the department ID total salary is 19,800. So this is the way how we can use the group by statement or clause for the grouping. Now suppose we want to filter the groups, such as we want to find the department IDs whose total salary is greater than 50,000. In that case, we cannot use where clause, as where clause would be executed before the group by clause executes. Such as check here. At first clear the screen for better view and we are typing select DPT ID sum salary from employee group by DPT ID where sum salary is greater than equal to 50,000 and then order by 1 semicolon. An error occurs in the query. SQL command not properly ended. Same as we can write down another one. Select DPT ID sum salary from employee where sum salary greater than equal to 50,000 group by DPT ID. So here we are typing the group by DPT ID after where. So write down here group by DPT ID order by 1. Just look the previous query. group by department ID were written before the where clause, and here we are writing or typing the group by DEPT ID after the where clause. Press enter, and here the error is group function is not allowed here. So group by clause is not properly placed in the query. In this scenario, we have the having clause, and we have to type select DPT ID sum salary from employee group by DPT ID having. In place of where, we are typing having. Sum of salary greater than equal to 50,000 order by 1. Press enter. Now the execution of the query happens flawlessly, and we have only those department IDs whose total salary is greater than 50,000. Now there is another operator, roll up, which also gives up the subtotal based on the columns we provide. Let us recall the query where we are getting the salary of employees grouped by department ID. So select DPT ID, EMP ID, sum salary from employee group by DPT ID, EMP ID, order by 1, 2. Now here we are not getting the total salaries along with each employee salary, and to get total salaries for each department we have to add them. But look at the query here, we are typing now, that is select DPT ID, EMP ID, sum of the salary from employee group by. Now type roll up that particular function. Roll up with department ID, EMP ID. So those would be in between the parentheses. Order by 1, 2. Press enter. Now check the output. Here the first one for the department 10, 105 for the employee ID, 106 for the employee ID, but no total salary has been provided. Let's check here previously. Only these two records or output was there. But in that case, the total salaries provided to department ID 10 also given here. So here we are also getting the same output, but also getting the total salaries for each and every department, and at last row the total salaries for all departments, and that one is the final. So this is how we can also use the group by and having clause along with the group by functions in Oracle SQL.